US President Joe Biden's pressed Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to close a deal with Hamas for a ceasefire in Gaza. It comes after a senior US official said there had been a, quote, breakthrough in negotiations. The official said Hamas had made a significant adjustment to its position in the talks. There are reports the head of Israel's intelligence service is going to travel to Qatar to discuss the details. In his call with Biden, Netanyahu's insisted the war would only end after Israel achieves its goals. Our correspondent Charles Stratford standing by for us here in Doha for an update on those ceasefire negotiations. First, we're going to head to Deir in central Gaza, where Hind Qadri is joining us live. Hind, I understand the situation there. Bakeries and hospitals out of power. Some are facing a shutdown. Tell us more.
Well, it's very hard on the humanitarian situation in Gaza. Al-Nasser Hospital, the only hospital that is facilitating in Khan Younis and Rafah and receiving all the patients, the only hospital that is working in that area is on the risk of shutting down due to the lack of fuel. The Ministry of Health is calling, they're appealing that this must not shut down. They need fuel as soon as possible to keep this hospital facilitating. Let me remind you that Al-Nasser Hospital was invaded by the Israeli occupation. They were working on rehabilitating the hospital for weeks now, and suddenly now after it stood up on their feet, they're working again. They have incubators, they have all of their departments working. The hospital is running out of fuel. Also yesterday, only one bakery out of 7 worked in Deir el-Balah. We're talking about bakeries that are serving 1.8 million Palestinians that are squeezed into the middle area after being displaced multiple times from different areas. The WFP, the World Food Programme, has been providing those bakeries with fuel, with flour, with salt, with yeast, and with all the ingredients that would make it possible for the bakeries to provide bread for all of these Palestinians. But also due to the lack of fuel, there is a threat that those bakeries will also shut down. But we got news that those bakeries received fuel for only 1 day, so the risk is also high for shutting those bakeries, and those bakeries are the lifeline for all of these Palestinians that have been displaced over and over again. But also Palestinians feel this risk. Al-Nasser Hospital, the bakeries being displaced, airstrikes still going on. So Palestinians still believe that there is a very collapsing humanitarian situation still going on in the Gaza Strip, despite the negotiations about the ceasefire deal and everything happening in Doha.
Yeah, I want to talk to you about that because, of course, with the backdrop of hopes once again of a possible negotiation towards a ceasefire, we're still seeing airstrikes and artillery strikes happening in Gaza. Just talk us through what the latest is with that.
Well, 5 Palestinians were killed. Among them are 3 Palestinian children in Jabalia, in a residential house. There has been also a couple of airstrikes in Khan Younis, also artillery shelling in Nuseirat. But the main news in Shuja'iyya, where there's no news out of Shuja'iyya, we're talking about a ground invasion for more than 6 days. No ambulances are being able to reach that area. No journalists are able to reach that area. No firefighters. We know that there are heavy shelling, endless airstrikes, and those Palestinians who were trapped, and they were sending calls and appeals for the world and for the community to evacuate them. We are not hearing from anyone, and this is what's making it very dangerous and risky and scary. And those Palestinians who have neighbors still trapped in Al-Shuja'iyya are very worried, but we're still waiting to hear anything from anyone from those families trapped in Al-Shuja'iyya due to the ground invasion that is still going on in that area.
Hind Qadri bringing us up to date from Deir el-Balah. Hind, thank you very much indeed. We're going to go to Charles Stratford, who's in Doha for us. It was about a month ago, US President Joe Biden said that there had been a proposal for a ceasefire on the table. Remind us what was in it and why nothing was done about it.
That's right, Rob. It has been more than a month since that proposal put forward by Biden happened, May the 21st. It was a UN-endorsed proposal as well, and rightly so. It's important just to go through exactly what that proposal involves. Well, it's 3 stages to that potential deal. The first stage involves a 6-week ceasefire and the withdrawal of all Israeli forces from populated areas in exchange for some of the Israeli hostages being released, including women, the aged and the sick, and that would be in exchange for some Palestinian prisoners. The second stage is going to involve, or was going to involve, the release of all the remaining living hostages. It's believed that there could be at least 50 remaining living hostages, Israeli hostages, inside Gaza. So that second stage was going to involve their release and a permanent end to all hostilities. The third stage was going to involve the beginning of a reconstruction plan of Gaza, and then all the remaining dead Israeli hostages, their remains, would then be returned to Israel. Now, there has been pushback, basically, both sides on this plan. The US has blamed Hamas. But as you say, we are beginning to have hope now that there may be changes to that proposal that have been offered by Hamas that are going to be discussed here in Doha in the next couple of days. But it was understood that Hamas basically wanted an immediate end to the war in this proposal. It was no good for a temporary 6-week ceasefire at the beginning. They wanted an immediate end to all hostilities and an immediate withdrawal of Israeli forces. And we understand that, although Israel said that certainly Netanyahu was very cagey in really appraising this proposal and never really publicly endorsed it. So we understand that there has been pushback in the last month and a half, of course, by the Israeli Prime Minister also.
Charles, thanks very much indeed. As things progress over the next coming hours, of course, we're going to be coming back to you to talk about that. Charles Stratford in Doha, thank you.